This can be a very frustrating essay. I have to admit, I've had my problems with it in the past. But it brings up such important issues that it's worthwhile to keep at it, believe me. And I guess what I mean by my frustration is that I'm still looking, what does it mean to think like an engineer? We see in this third section that Davis believes that the fundamental canons, let's say of he refers to the ABET code, which is basically like the mother code of all engineering ethics codes, but the canons are more or less the same. The first and fourth canon being perhaps the most important, or ethically the most interesting. Davis seems to just sort of assume that those first canon, the first canon is it, man. Holding paramount the health, safety, and welfare of the public. That is an embodiment of a responsibility on the part of engineers, which has got this almost categorical value. In any case, we're heading towards it, I think, an answer to what supposed answer to what it means to think like an engineer. But here in this third section is really a very interesting question. Is that given that okay, I'm a member of a profession, which I'm not, but you are becoming one, or maybe teaching is a profession. Who cares, actually? Part of teachers. But given that I am a member of a profession, and there is a code of ethics that's generally recognized in that profession, why should I obey it? Why should I obey it? And a very interesting answer is given in this section, and the answer is fairness. Principle of fairness, which is sort of assumed to be an operative principle. That and what is fairness? Fairness is when everyone gets what they deserve. Well, it's applied to the individual engineer. If you have an obligation to act ethically, it's because someone else deserves ethical behavior on your part. Maybe somebody like Downey would say, well, yeah, that's just the way it is, and there's no need for professional ethics because we all recognize that. The mechanic has an obligation to treat me fairly, and it's just as strong as the doctor's obligation to treat me fairly. But the way that Davis seems to be saying is that if you voluntarily, and as he says, no one involuntarily becomes a member of a profession. Right? You are voluntarily doing it right now. Not like you involuntarily became a citizen of whatever country you're a national of, but you didn't involuntarily become. You're not involuntarily become a profession. You're actually working very hard to do it. But thereby, I mean, you on the one hand, you're hoping as a member of the public that other members of that profession act, let's say, according to the first canon. That you will benefit by them not doing something that would harm you. But as a professional, you will be granted certain privileges. The profession is recognized by the rest of society as being a profession, and it's given certain privileges in terms of the kind of work that you can do that others can't, the kind of authorizations or the kind of approvals that you will be able to do that others won't, and generally a sort of status as a professional is sort of granted by society, and in return society is expecting you to do certain things, most importantly to act in its interest, or at least not to act in such a way as to harm its interest. We have that understanding with doctors and lawyers, don't we? That is, if we go to a doctor, we don't have a reasonable expectation that the doctor is going to cure whatever ails us. It may not be in his or her power to do so. However, we do have a reasonable expectation that the doctor will not do anything to harm us that can be avoided. The doctor will not inflict needless pain, suffering, or disease upon us that that's just an expectation. That if we hire a lawyer, we certainly expect that the lawyer may not be able to win our case. We can't reasonably expect the lawyer to win any case we bring to them, but we can reasonably expect them not to do anything to us that would actively harm our interests. It gets complicated with the engineer, because certainly the engineer's relationship with the public is not the same as the engineer's relationship with the client, and this is a big issue in engineering ethics, right? But as just a member of the public, I would imagine, understand that engineers will not do anything that will expose me to unnecessary risk, and we'll get into this in later readings about risk and what it means to harm the public unnecessarily as opposed to necessarily, but I do expect that, don't I? And I expect that if you have voluntarily become an engineer, then I can reasonably feel safe from your actions. Again, unless you go supervillain, in which case all bets are off. The Green Goblin, very smart guy, great engineer, but not very moral.